Okay. Well, maybe now it hopefully works. I've got everything here and we're a little bit late into the qualifying. Welcome everybody to qualifying in Canada here. I'm sorry that it took so long for us to start this race. It was due to some technical difficulties, which have been my fault. I take full responsibility for everything. I'm very sorry for everything that happened. But now we can concentrate on the race with 6 drivers in this race here in Canada. And Kevin Magnussen, who's currently on P1 in the first session, in the first Q1 here. But Hamilton obviously goes there pretty fast, pretty easily. No difficulties there. Well, our drivers are going to encounter a very, very interesting and dangerous, well, not really dangerous, but challenging track, as Canada, especially the hairpin here, is one of the most special circuits of the Formula 1 year that the drivers have to drive on. Well, there's a top 4 with Sebo 55 in the McLaren, Saf, the newcomer, in the Mercedes. Just behind him, it's Farideus in the Ferrari, the winner of the last 2 Grand Prix as well. And Elliott in the Racing Point. Also in here is Blind 30, who's just coming out and who's just finished his first lap with a 1:10.61. Farideus, who claims back the pole position, or the first P1 here in Q1 after 2 minutes of racing. Saf, who's dropped down to P3, and Elliott, who's still in P2. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 3. And here we can see the whole map, so it's a little bit easier for you. We've got some drivers who went back into the box here. Blind still out there to try to do a good lap. All of the drivers on softs, obviously, as we're having a very good time here from all of our drivers. And Rath as well on P6. Beautiful. All the 6 drivers from 1 to P6. That's a very successful race at the moment. But now all our drivers are in the pits. And we have only other drivers, only PC, only AI, who is currently on track. That is obviously not as interesting for us. Now the drivers are retiring from this session, so that we can easily jump into Q2. At the moment, Farideus is the one leading this qualifying session. In the meantime, Charles Leclerc, being the other F1 Ferrari driver, who's gained P7 for himself. And we're only waiting for Sebo, who's still in the pits, to retire, so we can jump into Q2 as well. Well, and as we've seen, this is our driving championship at the moment, or our qualifying after Q1. We've got Farideus on P1, Elliott on P2, Saf on P3, Blind 30 on P4, Sebo in the McLaren on P5, and Rath in the Alpha on P6. Rath being a driver that has been very unfortunate, as in the last race he immediately started off the race with a mistake, or the qualifying session retiring a little bit too early, which meant he had to start from way back in the grid. And then as soon as he started the race, the AI just took him out, which meant that he would have to drop down again, which is why he finished his first race in the F1 Esports League very, very far behind. But of course, every race is a new chance, and here we can see there's a lot of drivers already leaving the pits. We have Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, Rath is still in there, Lando Norris, Daniel Ricciardo also out on the track as well. We've got Faradeus now leaving the pits, 7:55 ahead of him. Lewis Hamilton is still in the pits. We've got Elliott and Blind still in the pits. Seth is going to go out as well. And we'll just stick with Faradeus. No, we'll stick with Sebo 55. And we'll look at the track. Well, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada, situated in Montreal, consisting of 15 corners, with obviously some great overtaking opportunities. And yeah, everything here is a beautiful track altogether. 4.361 kilometers to race for the drivers each lap. At the moment we've got a little bit of rain on the track, but this shouldn't be a problem for our drivers, as they obviously know what they are doing. This right now is the Virage du Casino, as it's called, between corner 13 and 14, one of the two DRS zones on the whole track. The second DRS zone being between corner 15 and corner number 1. Well, now you know something about the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, who obviously has been named after Gilles Villeneuve, the famous Canadian racing driver who passed away 1982 in the Belgian Grand Prix during a race. And now we'll look at Faradeus, who is behind Sebo 55. No driver has put up a time yet on the clock, but there's still some time to go, so we can obviously still wait for something, and we'll see. We've got a yellow flag, as it seems Saf has a yellow flag, but I'm not quite sure why. We'll see. That's no problem here, maybe just because he slowed down a little. Oh, there's some problem with the turning points here. With the steering wheel, a little bit too difficult for the Mercedes driver. We'll hope that he won't struggle with this problem in the race, obviously. Now we've got a very fast sector here from Blind 30, who's coming into Sector 3 to finish his lap. Faradeus currently on P1 with a 1.10, and Elliott on P2 with a 1.10 as well, just 1/10 away from each other. Blind finishing on P3, Sebo at the moment on P4, Rath on P5, and Saf going back into the pits, as I believe he has had some problems, some technical difficulties or something, which is very unfortunate, of course. The driver being currently on the mediums. Here we can see Faradeus on the mediums as well. Rath not on the mediums, and now Faradeus is going into the pits as well. Well, that was going to end dangerously. Elliott now slowing down as well, as he's missing some fuel. He's going to go into the pits as well. Blind 30 also now in Sector 2. coming in sector 3 here. 10 seconds slower than his lap before. And now we'll just look at Sebo, who's turning here in the little chicane before the pits hairpin that is coming. The little chicane in corner 9 and 10. Now on the straight here, which is obviously a very good overtaking point. A lot of space, a lot of speed, a lot of opportunity here. In here as well. Big chances to overtake, and we'll now stick with Saf, who's still on his outlap and has to do a time here if he wants to finish in the next qualifying session. But at the moment it's looking like he's struggling a little bit with the car. Or rather, not with the car, but with the steering of the car. We can see it here. Good corner here from him. And now on the straight it should be a little bit easier to manage the car. Hopefully he can control it. To go into the first lap of this, into the second official lap of this qualifying session. There we go. And he's on the second straight here. That comes after the hairpin. Into corner number 1, 2 and 3. And now on the straight, on another straight here as well. Albon having a yellow flag, and that was dangerous for the Red Bull driver to cut inside. Fortunately, he saw that and kept out of the situation. Well, that was about to get messy. We were lucky, or Saf was lucky, that the Red Bull driver kept out of that challenge. We've got another yellow flag, as now the track is way too wet for the softs, as it seems, and Saf has completely swiveled off the track. Just wow. I didn't think that the track was going to be wet that wet that fast, and certainly Saf didn't think of that too. But now he's going to finish his lap a little bit later than everybody else. Going to go into the pits to try on the wets or the intermediates to maybe get a time on the clock. He's going to have to repair his front wing as well. Well, but at the moment we still have some drivers here. That's a good qualifying session again from our drivers. Obviously Saf still has to bring his time on the clock, but I'm quite sure that if he brings the time on the clock, then he will be able to get a very good lap time if he's going out again in this last 6 minutes that are remaining. No, he's not going out again. He will deal and take that P15 with him after bringing no time onto the clock, which again, as I said before, means that he will have to start the race from P15. Very unfortunate for Saf. He came out of the box a little bit too late and then just couldn't finish the qualifying the way that he wanted to. But we will obviously go into Q3 and monitor the drivers that are still there, in which we have a Ferrari with Farideos, the Racing Point with Elliott, the Red Bull with Blind, and the McLaren with Sebo, and the Alfa Romeo with Rath. So everyone is there. And we can go into Q3 to then start the race. So, back in Q3, we have Rath on P3 at the moment. All the drivers, of course, have to bring a time on the clock here. We've got Daniel Ricciardo going out, Lando Norris going out, Rath staying in the pits at the moment, Magnussen out as well, Farideus out in the pits as well, Sebo going out and instantly hitting Lando Norris in the McLaren, which means that in the next lap Sebo has to come back into the pits to repair that front wing damage. Well, that's unfortunate for the McLaren. He was on his out lap, as is Elliott in the Racing Point, and Blind in his Red Bull, and Rath in his Alfa Romeo. We've got a yellow flag, as it seems it's Rath or Farideus. No. Yes, it's Rath causing the yellow flag, but I don't really see what happened. Now it has to let the other drivers by, and I'm not 100% sure what happened there. Sebo, as I said before, returning into the pits to repair the damage in the at the front wing. And now here we have Blind heating up his tires a little before starting his first lap in Q3, going into the corners and starting on the straight. He's now passed, and here we go. We'll stay with Blind for this lap to see how the Red Bull driver will do. As in the last race, it was a very successful one for him as well. And I believe that's a very good sector. 20.26. That's a very solid sector 1. He's now in sector 2. Well, maybe we can see him again. Yes, in the camera here we can see him again. Now on the straight after corner 10 to go into the hairpin. Here we are. Fastest lap being George Russell at the moment. And now Blind, who is putting up a very good time at the moment. 1.4. And now he's going back into the pits. Okay. I didn't expect that. Farideus instead is putting up a time, but he did hit the wall, which is obviously affecting his time a little, but it's still a 1.6.2. Brilliant lap by the Ferrari driver, who has been the race winner of the last 2 F1 Esports League Grand Prix, being situated in Holland and Baku. So in Zandvoort and Baku, the last 2 races. Elliott in the Racing Point on P2 after a very good lap. And Rath now. That was close. And that might be even a penalty, as Rath didn't close or didn't leave the space. Or did leave the space, but he left it very, very late. I have seen some contact, but I am not sure who had to give away some front wing. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I've seen some debris fly off. But still, we'll now stay with the number 9, with Rath in the Alfa Romeo here, driving a very good Sector 1, with the fastest Sector 1 that has been done so far in this qualifying session. Here we have the Alfa Romeo going into the hairpin. Good corner there. Very good turning from him. Sebo 55 with the fastest lap in the Mercedes, with a 1.10 being about 1/10 faster than Faradeus in this lap. But it's looking like Rath is putting up a very good time as well. We'll now see, and he's going to be on P4 with a 1.11. Very good lap from him as well. Really. Blind again on his out lap. Maybe we can now see what he can do if he will finish a full lap this time as well. Going into corners 1 and 2. Still in Sector 1, obviously. And now the little chicane. Not too difficult, but the exit is key to get a very good and fast exit for corners, for the next corners here. Another chicane that is a little bit wider. And Blind even getting fastest Sector 1. Again, another little chicane here, which brings him on the last straight before the hairpin. Again, the fastest sector for Blind in the Red Bull. And now on the last straight, will Blind 30 be able to get himself that pole position and P1? At the moment, it's Sebo 55 with the pole position in hand. And will we see the Red Bull driver steal that position? And it's looking like he will. And what a beautiful lap that has been. Nearly half a second faster than Sebo 55. A 1.9.5. Brilliant lap by the Red Bull driver here. Absolutely fantastic. Magnificent. What Blind 30 has done here. We see another Ferrari driver going out, as it was looking like a Ferrari driver, but it obviously can be also a mistake. No, it is a Ferrari driver, as it's Faradeus going out in another lap to maybe beat Blind 30, and that's what Sebo wants to do as well in the next lap. Get on to Blind, who's currently on a 1.9.5. What a brilliant lap by Blind 30 in the Red Bull. Will the McLaren driver or the Ferrari driver be able to get that position back? Or maybe is Elliott going to be able to get that position? We'll see that now as he's coming into the last corners. Close to hitting the wall, but he's pulled that off. And Elliott jumps onto P2. Now has to cut the circuit a little. There's a yellow flag, as Elliott doesn't have any fuel anymore. We've got Sebo here again, who's starting his lap. And now we don't have any wet conditions anymore, which now the track is dry, which could have been a big advantage for Saf before, as he unfortunately had to drop out of the session because he decided to go with the softs on the wet. Or well, he started his lap with the softs on the wet, and basically the wet circuit became too difficult to drive on. I will see that's a very good sector 3. Very good sector 3 entrance here from Sebo 55. Now on the straight again. Will he be able to beat Blind 30? And he won't, will he? No, he won't. He will stay on his P3, being half a second slower than the fastest lap he did. Now Farideo's closing in, and he gets pole position back. What a brilliant lap by Farideos in the Ferrari. And I was really sure that no one was going to be able to beat Blind 30 here. And Farideos really pulled it off. Farideos really pulled it off. Brilliant lap by the Ferrari driver. Absolutely fantastic. Nothing to say against the drivers today, because at the moment they're doing brilliant laps. They're putting here some brilliant laps, some brilliant times on the clock here. Not only by Farideos in the Ferrari, but also by Blind 30, Elliott, Sebo and Rath, all of them doing great times here. Doing a very good qualifying session at the moment so far. Now, another yellow flag in Sector 3. As I believe it was Rath causing the yellow flag, but I'm not 100% sure. No, it's in Sector 3 in the end, so it has to be someone who just went into the box. No, yes it is. So Rath, unfortunately not being the fastest driver, or being faster than P5, but still a very successful drive from him. Currently on P5, which he can be happy with. I think P5 is a brilliant lap time. All of our drivers are at least 3 seconds or 2 seconds faster than the AI. We've got Blind 30, who's finished his qualifying. We've got Elliott, who's about to finish his qualifying, being faster and faster every lap. And he will try to beat Blind 30 on that P2 spot. There's a yellow flag though, again, as Rath is still trying to go for another lap, but he doesn't have any energy anymore, any fuel, which is why the car is slowing down. So we'll stick with Elliott, who maybe can gain the pole position. And yes, Elliott gets the pole position in the Q3 here in Canada. Brilliant lap. I can't believe it. In the last second of the race, in the last seconds of this Q3, Blind 30, who was about to get that P1 spot, that pole position, Farideos steals the pole position from Blind 30, and Elliott then steals the pole position from Farideos with a beautiful lap. Fantastically done by all of the drivers here. And we'll now jump into the race, as I obviously wish a very successful race to everyone. Now we can't see anything. Well, we're now all here in the race, and that's my mistake. I now have to go into the formation lap.
Okay, our system checks are
Great.
good.
Drivers are not starting.
Start bringing the car up to temperature, please. Get some load into.
And at the moment I can't retire. That's why I have to go into the pits first to retire. Well, since that is only the formation lap, we'll not lose anything here. There you go. I'm sorry that I'm so quiet, but I have to concentrate on this formation lap. I don't want to end another driver here, because that would be stupid. So I'm just going to go directly into the pits if I can. Or I'm just instantly going to retire, so that we can monitor the rest of the race here. I'm just going to overtake everyone here. Ocken also heating up his tires. Great. I can't go into the pits here. Fantastic. We'll see if I can retire from the session in the first as soon as I'm here, but at the moment I can't.
You have a drive-through penalty. You've been given a drive-through penalty.
So, there we go. Now I did retire from the session. Now we'll have to wait until we can see everyone else. And here we are, as Faradeus has gotten a time penalty as well for corner cutting. Already very early into the race. And he's dropped out as well. Losing so many positions. He's now on P19 and he's lost the front wing. He has to go into the box as well right now. That's a very unfortunate race for Faradeus. A very unfortunate race start for Faradeus, but that's more fortunate and very lucky for the other ones, as Elliott has defended his pole position here right now and is currently leading this Grand Prix. Here we can see him. The position change also. Everything is here. Brilliant. Well, that's so unfortunate, but now Saf is down there as well, gaining some positions back too. As he's dropped down. We'll look at Rath now. He's currently on P7 behind Daniel Ricciardo and Kevin Magnussen. We'll look at the both drivers here. Faradeus, who's going into the pits as well as Saf is going. Unfortunately, I didn't see what happened there. And now Faradeus has to fight back to the top of the league here, to the top spots. Rath is now fighting against Magnussen here on the straight. And the Alfa Romeo should be faster than the Haas here. But the Haas is closing in. There was is going to be very dangerous here. But the Alfa Romeo of Wrath has gained that position back. Done a great job with that overtake here. And we've got a yellow flag in Sector 2. No, in Sector 1. As there's a big pile-up behind Antonio Giovinazzi. No, there's a McLaren stopping. And it's the McLaren of Lando Norris who's out of the race. Which obviously for our drivers means they're a little bit further on top here. Blind 30 also finishing out of the race. And the other drivers rushing through him. Blind 30 away from the track here. What happened there? I didn't see that. I'm so sorry that you had to miss this action, because I believe it was going to be so interesting. Saf also is disqualified from this race. I don't know what happened there. There's the yellow flag, but no safety car. Sebo 55. Seth now has left the race. Sebo on P2, Elliott on P1, and Rath on P3. And then we've got Blind on P5. And Farideus, the winner of the last two Grand Prix, on P17 after a very unsuccessful race start. And we're only 4 laps in. Well, that's what I call a race. Not much to say here. And Giovinazzi fighting off Blind 30, who obviously has done a great job. To pass again on P4 right now. But for the drivers who have dropped down, we still have some time to go. We still have some race pace to see, some racing to look at, and obviously we just have the right track to see it. As we now have Rath and Blind, who are not that far away from one another. Blind now trying to attack to get past Rath, who's currently on pole, on the podium. Late braking from the Red Bull driver, which brings him P3 and the podium. We've got Sebo on P2 and Elliott on P1. Farideus, who has now gained P16 here, that one position after dropping down to P19 at the start of the race. That was obviously very unfortunate. And he still manages to get himself the fastest lap, which obviously are still points for the Ferrari here. Rath now in the top here, trying to fight against Blind, or trying to attack Blind, but Blind is way too far away. So there's still a lot of space, a lot of a lot of time. So I've seen in the chat there was one of you who's written Sebo is going to win the race. So we already have some Sebo fans here. I am excited to see what will happen, because I believe that even though there are some drivers who have been unlucky from the start of the race and who have dropped out, obviously, I'm still very excited to see what will happen, because I think this race can develop itself to something very interesting. We're now currently in lap number 7, so there's still a lot of time to go from now until the end. We'll now stick a little with the P1 driver, Elliot, in the racing point. There we can see the pink Mercedes, as some people call it. And Sebo has gone into the pits, as well as Wrath, which leads Blind to go on to P2, and Kevin Magnussen on to P3. Well, that's a position that's very unknown for the Haas drivers. We've got Faraday here as well. Sebo passing George Russell, and there's Charles Leclerc. George Russell again very close. Well, that's weird. Faraday's retired from the session as well. And that is very unfortunate. Which means we are left with 4 drivers at the moment. Them being Elliot on P1 in the racing point. Line 30 on P2 in the Red Bull. Sebo now trying to pass on Line 30, who's coming out of the pits, but he is not going to be able to do that. Wrath on P4. Here we can see him in the Alpha. Very good what the drivers are doing. Sebo not that far away from Blind anymore. It's less than a second of distance. Now it's more than a second of distance between the two drivers. Sebo obviously trying to get back on P2 where he was before. That's some late braking, and Blind has did very early braking here, but in the end the Red Bull driver has got himself the position that he needed, and he's back on P2. Well, that's certainly is a very, very nice fight, a battle between the two of them. We're currently in lap number 10, and there is a safety car and a yellow flag on the whole track. As we can see in sector 2, it's looking like there is a Renault slowing down, but I believe it's the one of Esteban Ocon. No, it's not. What yellow car? Oh, it's Elliot behind the safety car, and Blind is way off. So we've got Elliott in the safety car, and it looks like Kevin Magnussen behind him. No, so it's Romain Grosjean behind him. Yes, we've got Elliott behind the safety car and Romain Grosjean on P2. Well, actually P16, but now currently P2. Well, and now the only thing that we can do is wait. As obviously no safety car is a pleasure. But all the safety cars are like a real bummer. And I guess every one of you can imagine also why. Because the drivers obviously want to race. And so something like that happening is not only unfortunate, but also absolutely unnecessary. Now we're still in the safety car. Lap 11 at the moment. About 24 laps to go. Safety car coming in this lap. Now Sebo and Blind absolutely fighting. You can see that Blind really wants that P2 here. Heating up his tires to prepare the car for the battle. Going closer and closer to the McLaren. Now he has to stay careful, as in this little chicane he had to slow down a little. Now there's a green flag again. Grosjean has to drop back. And the Red Bull is trying to cut the Sebo 55 out here over the inside. There's a blue flag, but for who? For Romain Grosjean. There again, the Red Bull is trying to get closer and closer to the McLaren of Sebo 55. Now passing the McLaren over the outside. Taking the inside then in the chicane and securing P2 for the Red Bull. That's a brilliant move. That has really been a fantastic move by Blind to get that P2 spot there. Rath now on P4 as well. Not that far away anymore from the two drivers. Maybe we can see a big battle now. Or at least about to be happening. Blind 30 has dropped back. And now it's trying, but they go wheel to wheel. And Blind is pushed away against the wall. That has not been the fault of Sebo 55. Blind 30 touched wheel to wheel. And then unfortunately the driver went into the wall. Which means that Rath gets himself P3 here. And I said it at the start of the race, if he's not going to do something stupid like the things that he did in the last race, and if he's not going to be unfortunate and get punished for nothing, then he's going to do a very, very good race. And at the moment, after 14 laps of racing, it's looking like he's going to finish on the podium in his first or in his second race. Now even on P2 as he's passed Sebo here. Brilliant what the Alfa Romeo is doing right now. Just fantastic movement in the car. Look at that one, but he's locked up right now. Oh, that one has been difficult. He has locked up. And now Rath is trying to get to Elliott, who's 6.5 seconds away from him, and Rath has locked up again! Oh, I can't believe that. 2 lockups in 2 corners. For the Alfa Romeo, but he still stays out on the track. And now Sebo has pushed him into the wall! And that was absolutely nothing that Rath could do. He was already on the outer side of the track there. I believe that is going to be a punishment, as Sebo has done a very dirty driving here. We've seen that Rath had no chance and nowhere to go. Sebo had the space he needed to leave Rath some space. He could also go a little bit wider, but Sebo tried to close the gap after passing Rath, and that was the mistake that he already did before with Blind. And now, due to the lockup, there's no grip or less grip on the tires of Rath. And now, I believe, is going to go into the box. If he's going to change his tires. It's obviously possible that he's going to stay out. No, as I said, I believe he's going to go into the pits. We'll see how much his pit stop is going to take, and that has been unfortunate for him, of course, because he just couldn't do anything. That's a solid pit stop here for the Alfa Romeo team, fitting in everything, and he's good to go. That's a good pit stop here. And Blind also dropping down, finishing ahead of Rath here, coming out ahead of him. Elliott now on the straight, coming into the hairpin. That's been a very good lap, a very good race by Elliott. Absolutely brilliant what he's been doing so far. Very consistent, very easy. He makes it look easy at the moment. We're in lap 16, so still some time to go. Not many cars into the pits right now. 1 stop or 2 stops for the Rath and Blind. We've got 3 medium tires, but none of our drivers, as Rath for example, even has the hards on. And at the moment, I have to say, it has been a good race from Sebo, securing P2 here, but he did drive very, very dangerously. There were some situations that absolutely were not useful or were not required. You could say that. Some situations were non-necessary. That was the word that I was looking for. Blind and Rath now, both of them very far behind. But no penalties here. We still have the same amount of stops, and Pierre Gasly on P3, who's gained 7 positions. And Blind and Reth, unfortunately, who have fallen down from that high place here. But they obviously will still fight. So we'll go for a lap with our current number 1, with Elliott in the racing point. He's been doing a really good job. All the race leaders, and I really hope that this week he can get another win or a win for himself, as in my opinion he's really deserved one. Great driver, great driving skills of course as well. Really should have gotten those points a little bit earlier. But well, in the end it's a race-to-race game, and they always try to give their best in every race. Sometimes with a little bit of luck, sometimes with a little bit less luck, as we've seen from Rath in the last race, who was very unlucky, and Faye Davis in this race, and Saf of course as well. Both of them, all 3 of them, very unlucky. So now coming into lap number 20. There's not as much time anymore left. Let's look at that. And Canada usually is a very easy track to drive. Of course, the hairpin being the most difficult position in my opinion, or the most difficult corner. We already have went past half a lap. Now Blind 30 passing everyone who's going into the pits right now. Will Rath do that too? Yes, he will. Going up onto P11 here, the Alfa Romeo driver. Now we'll see what will happen. At the moment, the top is looking very distanced. We've got Elliott with about 14 seconds of distance from Sebo 55. Another 14 seconds between Sebo and Pierre Gasly. And then it's getting closer and closer. Charles Leclerc here, very close to Alexander Albon and Ricciardo. But we obviously keep with our drivers, as Blind 30 is trying to pass Esteban Ocon with success. Now on P9, the Red Bull driver has got Charles Leclerc in front of him. Rath now here. Here we can see him in the Alfa Romeo, and behind him there's Antonio Giovinazzi finishing his 20th lap. They're now all in lap number 21. Everyone except Roman Grosjean, who's about a minute behind. Well, I say let's keep an eye on the race and we'll see how it's going to develop itself. What is going to happen? Here we can see the tires of the Red Bull, and I believe the Red Bull has hit some wall there. That's a little bit weird. What's happening right now? But we've got Blind now jumping up onto P4. Going in a little bit too deep into Alexander Albon. Here again. The corners are very dangerous. Or really tricky, and we've got Blind 30 who's looking like he's stopping. He's got Gasly behind him. I wouldn't really know why he did. Why he stopped. But we'll keep an eye on that. Blind still trying to get higher positions here, fighting against the Alfa Romeo of Antonio Giovinazzi. And now the gap between Sebo and Elliott is getting bigger and bigger. Now it's about nearly 30 seconds of distance between the two drivers. Rath now on P3. We'll see what Blind is going to do. But he's going to go into the pits again. Let's look at the tire condition here. Elliott certainly being the longest out on his laps, on his tires. The same as Roman Grosjean. But Blind 30 just changing onto the hards. Same as Rath, who's on the hards. And I'd say we'll just stick with Blind for a little to see if he's going to be able to get higher here. Now about to pass on Elliott. One lap behind. So back into the race, and we've got a lot of distance in the top here. Elliott being 30 seconds away from Sebo. who's being 30 seconds away from Rath. And then basically the only one driver left at the bottom is Blind 30, who's very far away from Rath on P3. But we'll now see what will happen for the last 10 laps. If we will see some changes or if we will see something happen here. Another lockup for Rath in the Alfa Romeo. Elliott now going into the pits. That's been a very fast pit stop for the Racing Point. And I will look as he decided to go into the softs to extend or increase the distance between him and Sabo 55. And he still managed to have so much time between the two of them. Sabo now only 15 seconds away from Elliott, not 30 but 15. And Rath only 30 seconds away from Sabo 55. Blind 30 at the moment being on P15. In front of Romain Grosjean, who's currently in front of him. And Blind 30 obviously not only eyeing to pass the Haas driver, but also to get some points back after this unsuccessful race for now. So Elliott now, having done another fast lap of the race with a 1.10 on the softs, of obviously. And well, what can I say? At the moment, it's looking like a very, very successful race for Elliott in the Racing Point. Sabo is looking like he's slowing down or not using his he's just sticking into the 7th spot there. I don't know what happened. We'll just jump back to Rath here, who's currently on P30, and we've got Blind, who's pushing now. Currently on P11, not that far away from Lewis Hamilton, but And I really hope that Blind will get back into the points. Now maybe with a late braking, no he cannot, but maybe now in the chicane he can cut inside, no he can't. Now on the straight, will the Red Bull driver be able to gain some positions against Hamilton? Maybe some late braking right now, that is what they try, but they go wheel to wheel. And Blind is out of the track again for another time in this Grand Prix. So unfortunate. The poor Red Bull driver really had to endure some casualties today, and I'm very sorry for him, as he was already trying to go back here on P10, but the AI, or better Lewis Hamilton, cost him the race today. And I'm really sorry for that, as Blind 30 has put up a very good race start from the first lap on, but then he dropped down and had to finish everything. So we are now with Elliott, who is 4 or 5 laps away from getting himself a brilliant lap time, and not only a brilliant lap time, but also a race win, another race win here. And Elliott certainly has chosen the best strategy. 4 laps to go, or 4 laps to go, yeah, and still on the very, very young softs here. Brilliant decision from him. Absolutely fantastic. What can you say against that? Now trying to pass Grosjean, but in the end it's pretty useless, and he's just risking his position here. Because if he really would strike against Grosjean and finish out of the Grand Prix, then it would cost himself the win. But everyone has his own racing style. I personally wouldn't have passed Roman Grosjean, I believe. But in the end, in the heat of the action, you always act differently. So we're now 3 laps away, about 3 laps away to finish this right now. Elliott still on P1, trying to pass Charles Leclerc, who's on P13. Sebo on P2 and Rath on P3. Blind on P15, unfortunately, and the other drivers are all out of this Grand Prix right now. And Blind has put up a new fastest lap, which obviously brings him a point, which can still be very, very important in the driver championship for him. We go into the corner cutting here from him. We're now 3 laps away, or about 2 laps away from finishing this Grand Prix, as Elliott is closing in. To the last, he's closing into the last 2 laps. Russell is leaving the space, as Russell is currently very happy with P8. And Elliott is going into the pits for the last 3 laps, therefore risking his P1 spot. He obviously does have 20 seconds to go, so he's just risking it a little bit, but nothing serious. We still have a very safe front three here with Elliott on P1, Sebo on P2, and Rath on P3. In my opinion, now Sebo has... Wow, that was a little bit weird as he turned away. In my opinion, it was a little bit harsh, the driving style of Sebo today. But in the end... it's the decision of the FIA to decide to intervene or interfere with some actions. And now we're into the last lap, as the drivers now only have to finish here. Blind 30, unfortunately, on P15, having a little bit of struggle with his car, as it looks. We've got Sebo on P2 and Rath on P3, and that is going to be our final position, our final standings for this race. Elliott, who's about to finish here. Rath, who I'm not quite sure if he's about to finish here or if he has to do another lap. But yeah, he has to do another lap. Elliott is going to finish on P1 to get himself the Canadian Grand Prix victory for the Racing Point. Very, very good race by Elliott. Very, very good. And congratulations to the Racing Point of Elliott. And of course, I'm very sorry for the Red Bull of Blind 30, who unfortunately didn't have the chance to fight for that win or for the podium. Meanwhile, it's Sebo 55 getting his podium here on P2, and Rath is about to finish his race and finish on P3 to get his first podium of the F1 Esports League. And I'm so happy for everyone. All the drivers did a very good job. I'm sorry for all the drivers who didn't have much luck. But in the end, I'm very happy for all of the drivers. Here we can see, obviously, Elliott getting that first place and that win here. That's a great race from all of the drivers. Well, I'm very happy. We'll now look if any of the drivers want to give a little bit of an interview. We'll now look at that. Just a moment. So, I hope everyone can hear me and understand me. I'm very happy to welcome Elliot here into this interview. First of all, welcome Elliot. And I can't hear you, I don't know why. Wait a minute. No, I can't hear you. I don't know what the problem is. If you can hear me, Elliot, maybe just like write a little message because I can't hear you. Okay. But I can't hear you. Yes, I'll... No, I still can't hear you. I don't know what the problem is here. Now I can hear you. Elliot?
Hello?
Hello, Elliot.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Finally, yeah.
It's great. Congratulations on your F1 win here.
Thank you.
It's been a tough race.
Yeah, I don't know what happened behind me, but I just luckily got off at the start. Made 10-1. Unlike I think Farius got in an accident with the McLaren, and then I was just able to increase his gap.
Yeah, I've seen there've been a lot of disqualifications or like crashes this race, with obviously two of the drivers getting out of the race very early, and basically you were left with three other contenders there. Rath and Sebo doing a great race, and the other Red Bull driver being a little bit unfortunate, not having the luck that you guys had, and well, not that you had luck, but not that you needed it, but you know what I want to say, that he was a little bit unlucky to finish and to end the race like this.
Yeah, I was hoping for a battle at the front, but I mean, the people who similar speed, Farius and Blind, just Farius died. I don't know what he like crashed out and retired, and Blind kept on spinning it stuff. He ruined my fastest lap at the end, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I've seen there were some situations where Sebo did drive a little bit too aggressively. Do you have something to say about that?
No, I came into the pits because I had enough time to pit and just go fastest lap at the end, and then he came out just similar time, and then he wanted a little battle, so it stopped me from getting the extra point. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but it's extra point in it. But yeah, I don't know. He's normally fine. I think he just got a bit frustrated, which after spinning a couple of times and
I saw that. As obviously in this race, it was a little bit aggressive from him. Obviously, the racing style that we've seen today, there were a couple of crashes or a couple of battles that he had with the other drivers, which then also led to point losses or position drops, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm happy for you that you didn't really encounter or didn't have any problems with the drive. And again, congratulations for that win. Did a very good job. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
And well, thank you for the interview.
That's okay. I'll just, thank God I've finally got a win after two races, which were not were good, but
well, last race was a little bit unfortunate. after
Yes.
the collisions with the AI and basically the big discussion that we had after that. But I mean, that's a good comeback. That's the way to fight off that that discussion, just to punch a little bit, or to give that statement that the league or you wanted to give everyone. Well, again, thank you for the interview.
Thank you. I'll leave you to it. Cheers. Bye.
And so, guys, we've seen a very successful and interesting race today. I'm very happy for what we've seen, and I wish all of you a very nice weekend. Stay on track, and we'll see you later for another race on the Xbox. That time at 7 p.m. And yeah, we'll see you later. 7 p.m. UK time. Goodbye, everyone. I'm happy